Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and in this video I'm going to show you how I make my practically perfect poached eggs. I love a perfectly poached egg, and to me that means the white is firm but delicate with no runniness, and the yolk is like a nice warm gravy. Poached eggs can go great on top of salads, in a bowl of ramen or pho, Turkish eggs, or my favorite and my family's favorite, Eggs Benedict. The problem with making Eggs Benedict for 4, 5, or 6 people is that you need to make your poached eggs in bulk and have a system where you can plate them so we can all eat at the same time. Now, if you want to just make 1 or 2 poached eggs, just get a sauce pot, bring the water up to a simmer, and use the Vortex method. Get the water spinning with a spoon, and then crack your eggs into the center of the whirlpool, and hopefully they'll tighten up into a nice round poached egg. Unfortunately, that's not always the case, and very often you're left with a sauce pot full of a bunch of stringy white stuff like this. And that brings me to one of my first tips to making practically perfect poached eggs, which is controlling the whites. You've probably noticed when frying eggs that there's 2 consistencies to the white. There's that nice firm stuff that hangs out around the yolk, and then there's that other stuff that just sort of spreads its way across the fry pan. One way to minimize this is to make sure that your eggs are fresh. The fresher the egg, the less of that runny white you have, and the more of the thick hold-together white you have. The other option is to strain your eggs. I have a large strainer set over a bowl to collect my liquid egg whites, and into it I'm going to crack 6 eggs. I find this Dutch oven method handles about 6 to 8 eggs max per batch. And besides straining out the whites, it also allows me to collect any accidental bits of shell. The next tip is something I learned from America's Test Kitchen, which is making the poached eggs in bulk. And to do that, I'm going to use a Dutch oven. I'm going to set my burner to high, and in this Dutch oven I've got 1.5 quarts or about 1.5 liters of water, to which I'm going to add some vinegar. And that didn't go nearly as cleverly as I planned. In total, I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons or 30 ml. I'm going to cover this and bring it to a boil. I've seen another eggs poaching video where a woman cracked her eggs into room temperature water with vinegar in it and let them sit for like an hour or 2 to start firming up the whites. And yes, it did make the whites nice and tight and firm and a nice little oval shaped, but the texture was really kind of rubbery to me, kind of off-putting. I far prefer just adding the vinegar to the water and cooking in that. Now, if you plan to do a dozen or more eggs, I recommend having a second Dutch oven as sort of a keep warm receptacle. The temperature we're shooting for in this one is 150 degrees Fahrenheit or 66 Celsius. At that temp, we won't have to worry about the yolks setting. Back to our strained eggs, we're going to dump these into a Pyrex measuring dish. And I think I may have orphaned a yolk there. The whites I'm going to save for another recipe. I'm thinking maybe my candied pecans. My water has reached a boil, so I'm going to turn off the heat and just cook the eggs with the residual heat. I'm going to pour these in one at a time. Sometimes I'm a little tentative, a little slow on the pour, and almost wind up orphaning another yolk right there to go with this one that I orphaned earlier. And as I said earlier, I find that you can fit about 6 to 8 eggs at a time into the Dutch oven, which I'm going to cover and let cook for about 3 minutes. Meanwhile, checking on the temp of my reserve pot, not there yet. After 3 minutes, I'm going to see how set the whites are on these. Yolk is good, white, still a little jiggly for my tastes. Yep, same here. I'm going to fish out this orphaned yolk along with its counterpart white and put it into this ice water here. I'll show you what I'm going to do with these later. The temperature now on my holding pot is at 150, close enough. So my eggs, firm in the white, gonna go into the reserve. Now, because I'm not actually cooking a dozen or more eggs, this was just for demonstration purposes. Instead, I want to save these for a day or 2 in the fridge and show you how they reheat. So I'm going to put them into the ice water as well. I am, however, going to save one so that you can see just how beautifully these turned out. Look at the shape on that. And as I cut into it, you'll see no runny white. The yolk is steaming and like gravy. But back to the eggs that I'm going to save. They've cooled off enough now that I'm going to put them into a Ziploc bag. And then these are going to go into the fridge for a day or two. Another tip is always make an extra egg or two. If they all turn out perfectly, great. You've got a couple that you can either store and use a couple days from now, or you can just have more Eggs Benedict. I had one that didn't turn out in poaching, and another one that seemed to kind of drain a little bit inside the bag overnight. So I made some egg salad. Here are my 2 defect eggs. That's the one that we orphaned. I'm going to add some mayo to that, a little mustard, and then give it a good smash with the back of a fork. To this, I'm going to add some celery, a little everything seasoning, and give that a mix. And I'm going to eat these with some of the Fox Hill Kitchen's Keto Rye Crisps. Not too shabby. I just love that I can have poached eggs basically on standby, and because I make my own bulk Canadian bacon and I've got a system and video for making hollandaise sauce super quick and easy, I can whip up Eggs Benedict in probably less than 5 minutes. That's pretty cool. I'm going to start by heating up about a cup of water to my target of 150 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm going to let that go for a minute. Meanwhile, I'm going to toast up the bottoms. I don't have English muffins. Instead, these are the biscuits using Victoria's Keto Kitchen flour. I'll include a link to that. And then I'm going to get my Canadian bacon going. This is homemade Canadian bacon, just having 2 slices. I'm putting these in the air fryer, going to set it to air crisp, and let it start preheating. After a minute, my water still isn't quite at 150, so I'm going to let it go another 20 seconds. Now it's up to 154, 155. That's okay because the eggs are out of the fridge. It's going to drop that temp a little bit. I'm not too worried about the yolks cooking. I'm going to put 2 of these into the water and let those cook while our Canadian bacon finishes. My Eggs Benedict bottoms have toasted, looking quite nice. Set these over here while we wait for our Canadian bacon. I let these go through the entire preheat cycle plus 2 minutes. So in total, about 5 minutes. They're looking great. Plate that one up. Plate that one up. And then we'll add our eggs. Using a slotted spoon, we'll get off as much water as we can. Oh yeah. Loving that texture. Egg number 2. And then some hollandaise sauce. Now remember, these have been in the fridge for 2 days, and as I slice through them, you'll see, again, the yolk just looks beautiful. I sure do love Eggs Benedict. To be able to whip something like this up this quickly, whether it's just for an individual or to make it in bulk, it's a game changer if you're into poached eggs. There may be some of you out there saying, well, what about using sous vide to cook eggs in bulk in their shell? This is sometimes called an onsen egg. The problem with that is that a yolk, the temperature it will set at, is lower than what it is for the white. So if you're doing a sustained cook, you will actually wind up cooking the yolk more than you want and the white less than you want. Here's a picture from the awesome cookbook, Modernist Cuisine at Home, and you can see that the yolk starts to set at about 154 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 68 Celsius, and the white doesn't start to set until 162 Fahrenheit or 72 Celsius. Now, that may not seem like a big temperature difference, but it's enough to change the consistency of your egg, and that's why I prefer this method over sous vide. If you've avoided poaching eggs in the past, either because you feel they're too difficult to get right, or too difficult to do in bulk, or too difficult to feed an entire family with all at the same time, I hope that you found this video useful. If you did find it useful, please click that like button. If you're not a subscriber already, tap that subscribe button, then hit the bell to turn on all notifications. And over here, I'll throw a couple other Eggs Benedict-y sort of videos. How I make Canadian bacon, and my right on the edge of instant hollandaise sauce. Thanks for watching.